Hi, this is Jim Peacock with Peak Careers Consulting, and welcome to another Peak Careers interview. Today, we're going to explore this question: what do you want to be when you grow up, and why is that the wrong question? My guest today is JP Michel, the founder of SparkPath and creator of the challenge cards, and we're going to discuss his new book, The World Needs You, and how a mindset change is needed in order to be a career catalyst. So how are we as career coaches going to change to being career catalysts in the definition of JP Michel? So I'm not going to read this whole thing for those of you who want to read more about him, but he really started I met JP, I think it was 2019. I think
Or
it was
earlier at the
I've been early
NCDA
at
conference.
National
Yeah.
Career Development Association conference. We were both exhibitors actually, and I was absolutely so intrigued by what you were doing with your challenge cards, and really love it. And I love this that you were recognized as the 2022 Outstanding Career Leader by Career Professionals of Canada. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Um, you can learn a lot more about JP on these websites that we have here, but I want to kind of dive into this. I actually just finished this book this morning, so I was challenged to get going on this, but I loved it. It's a very readable book. It's a very practical book. I love the way you have it laid out. And we're gonna give away at least one book here. So stay tuned, and for those of you who are on my email list, stay tuned, and I'll send that out at the end. But let's dive right in. Welcome, JP, coming in from Ottawa, is it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great. So I thought what we should do is kind of walk through how you talk about the mindset sort of challenge is really kind of flips the model, from this trait factor kind of concept where if I like building kitchen cabinets, then I should, that's the realistic category in the Holland. Here's some jobs that you could do, and then you just look at a list of jobs and kind of explore that. How does the mindset walk our audience through what's the different about it and how it's flipped?
Well, the mindset you're talking about matching kids to one job title for life, that's the current mindset, Jim. That's what's happening to thousands of students this morning. They took the interest-based inventory. And what they learned from that process is that to be successful, I need to be certain. I need to have occupational certainty. I need to pick one thing for life. They learned that careers are linear, just the way you described, right? I have this trait, leads me to this path to study, leads me to this one job, and I lock it in. I'm saying this in a very black and white way to be provocative, obviously, because most of your listeners would not agree with a single thing I just said so far. Because so many of these students, that model doesn't work. There are exceptions. I've met a couple people, Jim, who said to me, I did the interest-based inventory and it found the right thing, but this is such a small group. I meet all the other folks. I meet everybody who, for them, career development didn't work for me. Career exploration didn't work for me. I have no idea what I want to do. Why is that? Well, there's a few reasons why this approach, we've maybe overestimated its capability to actually predict where people will succeed. Maybe we've oversimplified the world of work into, specific lanes. So instead, what I've been doing for the last few years is I'm inviting career advisors, career educators, career catalysts to flip the model. What if instead of starting with a job title, we started with a problem to solve? For example, we would invite students and mid-career professionals to say, do you want to reverse engineer the brain or end extreme poverty? Or maybe you don't like those problems. Maybe you want to improve mental health or redesign our healthcare system. From those challenges, Jim, then we work backwards. We looked at what organizations are doing that now, who works there, what are their jobs, and what did they have to learn to be able to do that. The reason it's flipped is because most students will go through their education journeys the opposite way. They're going to say, well, what's my favorite class? Here's something I can do in college. What kind of job can I get with this major? Hopefully somebody hires me. I don't know who. And then later, once you're in the job, you're like, what am I actually doing? What is this all for? Who am I serving? Who am I helping? How am I helping them?
Mm.
By starting with challenges first, the whole approach is more purposeful and meaningful. And it's a powerful way to explore careers you may have never expected to explore.
Right. And you know, and trait factor worked for many years. I mean, and as you pointed out, it actually still does work occasionally, you know, but the trouble is those aren't the people that we're seeing as career service providers. I mean, the people who said they wanted to work at a bank, like my one brother, and went to college and got a banking degree and worked at a bank and continues to work at a bank. Those people are out there, but they're not the ones coming to us. And they're a minority, as you pointed out. Most people, it's something really, really different. And so I know Rich Feller is not a big fan of the interest assessments for a whole bunch of reasons, because it's a very myopic view of the world. Um, so it does work, but this challenge mindset, I love it. You know, it really gets people to say, wait a minute. It doesn't have to be my interest, what I'm seeing around me, because I have a very biased view of the world of work. If I live in northern Maine, my view of the world of work is very different than if I grew up in Dallas, Texas, right? And so that I think that's just real important. So I love the fact that you flip it, and there's a lot more to talk about that. But I want to talk about how important it is to note that most people really only could probably rattle off 100 job titles or something. And I think in your book, and I know you've talked about this, there's like 20,000 different job titles. Like who could, nobody knows them all. No, there's computers that would probably be able to find them all, you know, but there's so many of them. And so I love what I love about your approach is the first thing I do when I work with people is to get their heads out of the job title world. Forget job titles because they're biased. They're a closed perspective. And I like to focus on skills and things that you love to do. But how does the challenge mindset get people to explore? So how do you actually get them to explore and get them off of ground zero and get their heads out of those careers?
Well, Jim, our field is excellent at helping them explore themselves. We are amongst the best at self awareness. We like to start with self, skills, values, attributes, and it's so valuable, like what we're able to do to help them surface that and think more clearly about who they are. That's the self. What about the world? Historically, our field has had very limited tools to explore the world of work. We have the job title. Sometimes we look at company names. Sometimes we look at LMI, labor market information. In my mind, this is very limited, the scope of our tools to understand the world of work. The tool I'm recommending that people explore is problems to solve, because the labor market is driven by problems to solve, not by job titles. That's why the company was formed or invented, is to solve a problem, meet a need, take on a challenge. If we can give the field of career exploration this type of big picture thinking, it gives them way more tools to explain the world of work to their clients. Even for a 15-year-old student, you can give them this bigger picture thinking by giving them examples of problems to solve. You mentioned Rich Feller. He taught me a lot about how to think critically about the trait approach. He taught me how to honor that approach and the value that it brings. It still does work. I still use it in my work. I like the way that it cuts the world of work into 6 pieces of a pie. What Rich told me about is, let's be careful. Let's be very delicate if we use this model to match. That's where we start to get into trouble. And we know that a lot of interest inventories, that's what they focus on, is the matching component of it. Rich also taught me about exposure bias, which is what you hinted at, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what if you come from a marginalized community that may have limited your exposure to the world of work? Is that going to influence how you report your interests? That's when I learned from Mark Savickas that reported interests are not necessarily as important as demonstrated interests. So that's when I started really questioning this idea of only relying on interests and traits to predict the world of work. So we needed new solutions. And my background, as I've told you, is industrial organizational psychology. I'll just share a story quickly with you, Jim. I was a young kid, 26, 27, straight out of my master's program, parachuted into companies as a consultant. Imagine me in person at a gold mine, training 20 leaders, every one of them with 5, 10, 20 more years of experience than me. Okay. Imagine what I felt like. I had no idea what I was talking about, Jim. Do you think I was going to understand their world by reading their job titles, by reading the name of the company? Those tools were not useful to me. Once I started learning what they were doing was by figuring out what's the problem they're trying to solve in their role. How does that connect with the vision of the company? What about in the department? What's the problem they're trying to solve? The people they manage, what's the problem they're trying to solve? This gave me new insights very, very, very fast, which I needed to sink or swim, to prevent from sinking in front of those leaders, right? So I took that idea and I started exploring it. And eventually I developed a tool called the challenge cards. That was a very simple tool. It's a card sort with different problems to solve. Exactly, you've got a copy there. And
Yeah.
that's the way I introduced the ideas to career catalysts. And that's the way they introduced this. It sounds like a theoretical, complicated idea, but it's not when you play a game and you ask someone simply, would you like to work on this challenge or that challenge? Then it makes it very easy for them to absorb and connect with it.
Yeah. So I'll just, for those of you who have not used these, like there's a whole, I don't know how many there are, 50 or something like that now.
Yeah.
And this one was, I just pulled this one out, help people who need you. So there's more than one help people in there kind of oriented, but this is help people who need you. So then the back basically has a short description. When people are helping each other, we can accomplish so much more. Plus helping others makes us happier. And there's a little bit more there. But then there's like a list of just a list of some possible jobs. And what I love about this is this philosophy that you've brought in is that it's not necessarily about a bachelor's or a PhD in an area. You sort of you've done a good job at representing. There's sort of like this one is a midwife or a doula, educational assistant, child youth worker. I mean but there's a lot of exploration that's going to go on. These are just hints, and so once we do this, where do you send people to? So let's say we have a person who picked this and they said, I really want to do this. What might you do to help them take that first step to start doing the research? Because these are just a beginning place. These jobs are just a beginning to say what is out there. What are some steps that you've done in the past that you found that work?
Right before the research is the reflection, Jim, the questions that you know intuitively to ask as a great coach. You're going to ask them why. What made you pick that? And you're going to pick apart some valuable insights that they might never have seen before. I need that to guide them for the research that's coming next. So once they know more about why they picked the card, you're going to send them off to do research. Most of our clients struggle with this. They need our help. I've done full webinars on how to Google this stuff. Okay, so traditionally I would go, all right, you want to protect society from crime? Let me show you how to Google companies that protect society from crime. Here's what to watch out for. Here's what to do. Here now, try it on LinkedIn. Here's what to watch out for. Here's what to do. That works. Everything changed though when ChatGPT came out, and they had tremendous capability to scrape the web much faster than Google did. So this is my schools and my clients and the people that use the challenge mindset in the community that told me, like, try it. Look what I've been doing. And since then, I've done webinars on this. I've used it a lot myself.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty amazed at the answers that I find. So I built a list of prompts for myself to research companies, research jobs, and then research education programs and make those connections. And now I can do that very, very fast for any area, because that's part of our work, right, Jim? Like like you can't pretend like you know the 20,000 jobs, right? Which we're not going to do. Instead, we're going to show people the mindset, tools, techniques to explore new areas. We don't need to become proficient at all of them, but just giving them the tools for them to research things on their own. I think that's how we're supposed to set them up for success.
And there's still going to be a place, for that exploration on LinkedIn. I mean, where those are real people, who what I love about LinkedIn is you can see the path and how they got there quickly, right? I mean, so, but you could use magazines, you could use articles. We were talked about the Bill and Melinda Gates, uh, I can't remember
Foundation,
the
exactly.
foundation. They have
That's one in my book that when I wrote The World Needs You, I wanted to tell people, listen, the challenge mindset is an idea that everyone has access to. Like I built a tool called the challenge cards, but you could do this with, just like you said, magazines. I put out a list that anybody can go download right now, a list of all these organizations that articulated challenges in the best way that they could that people can go out and solve. So there's so many sources to look to find challenges, problems to solve in the world. Yet, one of the best sources is if you have a student that does the card sort and at the end of it they say, oh, you forgot one, that could be the best result of the exercise because now they see the world through the lens of challenges. They connect it with something else that they know, and then they can articulate and create their own challenge card, which is something I really encourage people to do.
For me, the core difference of this philosophy is that it's built in curiosity and ownership.
Mm,
I mean, when a person comes to me and says, give me that test to take that'll tell me what to do, they don't own that at all. And if they take a career assessment of any sort and there's a list of occupations, I'm always like freaking out a little bit because they want to just go to that list and only that list. And what you know and what you've articulated in this book and your philosophy is it's not about the list. It's about the curiosity and saying what else is out there. And that's what I love sort of with, my big piece is serendipity and understanding chance events. But your stuff is built in curiosity and ownership. I just love that. They own it, right? They're going to go out and do that research. They need to go out and do that research, right?
yeah, you're completely right. I love that you picked out those two words because I think that's part of our work is you're supposed to meet with someone that in front of you, they're behaving with low curiosity. You're meeting with someone that shows up to you, just like in your example, that shows up with low ownership. You're meeting with someone that might feel like the world doesn't need them. How can you be the career catalyst that flips those three things? How can you 10x someone's curiosity after meeting with you? How can you 10x their level of ownership and make it fun? How can you motivate them to feel like, wow, I met with Jim and I feel like the world needs me? To me, this was my way to articulate the magic of our field of what it's like to be a career catalyst that does life-changing work, because I think that that's our responsibility. Here's one of the books I'm reading. I'm sure you've read this one already. David Bluestein,
Oh,
Bluestein or
I
Bluestein?
have not. It's on my list. I have not.
So I've just started, but David talks about it feels like a group of people at the margins, but this is millions of people
Mm,
that are on the cusp of joining the labor market or not. And I see that who's going to help them? You know, who, is it going to be, will the education system magically fall in love with career development overnight? They might not. And that might provoke some people on the call who work within the education system and are in love with careers. You're the exception to the majority who don't understand the connection between careers and education. Who will do it first? Is it going to be them or is it going to be us? Is it going to be us, the career catalysts that step up to help these millions of people join the labor market in a way that it's not just about surviving at work, but thriving at work? That's the potential of our field. Like we're capable of that.
so that's kind of a nice segue to the one of the other questions I wanted to ask. I love how you throughout the book you differentiate the matchmaker and what a career catalyst is, And I'd just like to hear a little bit more about how'd you pick career catalyst? What's sort of packed into that one? Because to me, I love it. I love it, and but I'd like, the matchmaker, just talk a little bit about that, and the matchmaker and the career catalyst and how you kind of came up with the career catalyst.
Well, I started with a completely different word that I decided to remove from the book because it was too strongly worded. Can I tell you?
Yeah.
Dream killer.
Oh no, was that in your first draft?
Yeah, I think you
Oh,
might have
I
read
did.
that in the
I
first
did.
draft.
Sorry. You let me read your first draft. So yeah.
Jim, the whole thing started with dream killing. And the idea behind dream killing is that
Oh yeah.
there's an old way of doing career development that didn't even serve the students. It was about crushing dreams, being realistic, and pretending like we're going to match people with one job forever. And the world of work has changed. We
Yeah.
need a different approach to careers. And
Yeah.
students in our field were starving for new tools and new language and new mindsets to understand the world of work. So that's where it started. And this idea of being a matchmaker, we know it's over, Jim, but some people are still living in that world. Like you and I have to pretend like we're going to learn the 20,000 jobs, like we're going to learn every industry, like we know how to measure people perfectly. Like there's a formula to measure your personality and interests and values, and then we'll match you with exactly the right occupation. It's time we move past that. Intuitively, we know we're not supposed to do that yet. Sometimes we still have the same tools and language from that era. So that's where this idea of dream killer or matchmaker came from. And I thought of all the great career coaches that I've met over the years and that I've learned from, that I've read and talked to and heard their stories, what do they do? And that's what I try to embody with the word career catalyst. These are people that are prioritizing exploration over decision making. These are people that are thinking about challenges, not job titles. And these are the people I look up to. And I think this is what the field wants to grow and change.
Yeah. Yeah. And good choice on changing it to matchmaker. I think it's a better word. But I do the career catalyst, man, I really feel like that's really moving the client. And it's still, the ownership has to be in that client. That's the key. And a catalyst keeps that ownership there. I'm just there, the person kind of nudging you. And so a big part of my philosophy is this comes out of the happenstance learning theory, and what I call intentional serendipity, which I think is the problem with happenstance is that there's a feel of throwing the dice and just sort of taking what's there. I like to use intentional serendipity. So intentional, where you've got to take some kind of action, right? Which is buried in your philosophy too. That person has to take some kind of action to get out there, but then being willing to discover something by accident. And I think the key there is to be willing. And I think that's where we have to help people is you got to be open to discovering something. You can't know all the jobs. So what's out there that you might want to do? When you go out and explore, go out and whatever, do stuff to take some kind of action to get yourself closer to that world of work, but then be open to discovering things. And I just felt like that this challenge mindset is just, for me, embraces this intentional serendipity to be taking some kind of action. But what are some other techniques that you do to encourage that curiosity to get out there and put themselves out there?
That's a good one. Recently, I'm spending a lot of times directly with students, which I haven't gotten to do in a while. And they show up how you think they would show up, looking for answers. I think as career coaches, we've had that experience where they look at you in the face and your eyes and they're like, tell me what to do, right? So the curiosity is directed towards you, right? But as a catalyst, you want to shed light on other sources. You want to shed light on other places where they could discover things. And thankfully, we live in this information age where some of these 16-year-old students that I meet with, if they happen to have spent time, like 45 minutes on a topic that they're interested in, they could surpass my knowledge in that amount of time on a topic. So it's not the matchmaker anymore in that world, right? It's the catalyst, because if we feed that curiosity, they can go get this wonderful information from thought leaders online. And of course, they have to be critical of the different sources that they're reading. But that's where I start, Jim, is I want to give them a small taste, a small experience where they find something that they like. Because sometimes when people show up to see me, they say, I don't like anything. I don't want anything. I don't have anything. But we both know that's not true. Like we're going to help them find stuff that they like. And then they get that feeling, so a little bit of a buzz. Oh, I do like something. Then you might give them a little bit of like, oh, I do have something to offer. And that generates some momentum. And then you can give them other sources. Okay, well, if you like this, go research this, go read this company's website, go read their mission, go read their about page, go on the LinkedIn profile of the person who works there, go look at their career path. So you give them some insights into some homework and you get the ball rolling on what they can be curious about, what they can learn about.
But and it seems to me that there's a step beyond that too, where it can't just be about the reading, right? You want to get them to go out and talk to some of these people, right? Or to try a you know an internship, or what do they have in the internships or something? I mean, I think I think they have to get to that next stage, right? Where they're so they can touch it and hold it. I don't like to order things online that's because I want to touch stuff. I'm not going to buy a pair of shoes online because I want to put them on, right? And I
Yeah.
think we have to figure out ways to get them. And you talked a little bit about the Stanford life design, the designing your life, and I love that idea where you kind of prototype three different ways, but get out and do it, right? I mean, that's so important.
Yes, I have a yes, but for you. The yes, but is like that's the same philosophy I believe in, and the but is if I just say that to student point blank, they're gonna say, yeah, yeah, I'll do that in 3 years, or I'll do that in 4 years. So I feel like the majority of my work is, can I get them to do it now? Can I
Now,
shift the work up front? I'm gonna tell you how I do it, then I want you to tell me how you do it, because this is a very hard part of our work, in my opinion, because a lot of students will say this is extra, it's for later. So I've tried to come up with some provocative way to tell students. I tell them, well, listen, you don't need to do anything right now. If you want to figure out this is for you, just go do 2 years of psychology in college. Okay, it's just going to take you 2 years. It's going to take you 800 hours, and it's going to cost you, $40,000 or $80,000. And just let me know in 2 years what you think. Or I'm going to tell you what you can do in the next 2 hours to determine like if it's a good fit for you. You're going to research this, you're going to go talk to this person, you're going to ask them these three questions. It's going to take you 4 hours, it's going to take you 8 hours, or you could do it this other way. So do you see what I'm trying to do,
yeah.
Jim? Right? Like I'm trying to play this game with them of like dramatically showing why we're doing the design thinking experiments and prototyping now, because it's going to happen no matter what. It's just you choose which format. And of course, for them, it feels like life dictated to them. No, no, no. Like I'm going to go to college. I'm going to think about career after once I get to my career. And we know that there's a lot of consequences to doing it that way. Too many risks, right? What about you? How do you convince people to go out and do informational interviews, to go out and do this upfront research?
Well, I mean, I just want to comment on the fact that I think saying everyone should go to college just kicks the can down the road. To your point, oh, I'll do this later. I won't think about it when I'm a sophomore. I'll think this in high school. I'll think about this when I'm a senior and have to make a decision. Oh, I'll just go to college, and they'll make, the decision gets kicked down the road. And the reality is, with the world changing so fast, that you don't need in many cases you don't need a 4-year or 6-year degree to do some of these different things. You can go out and we have this technology company right here in Waterville, Maine. They're like, we'll take a college grad, but we'll take a high school student who's already doing coding and playing around with games because they've got the curiosity, the know-how, and the interest we can teach them how to do stuff. There's some short-term trainings they can do. So part of it is getting people to get out of this mindset that I'll do it later, to your point. I'll do this later. Oh, I'll go to college and do this later. And the reality is you can do a lot of stuff now. One of the examples I like to use and tell people is just going out and volunteering. Sometimes it can be incredible, right? I used to have high school students that say, I'm thinking about being a veterinarian. I said, all right, you got a vet shop right down the road. Go there every single Tuesday and Thursday. Tell them you're going to go every Tuesday and Thursday and you're going to empty the garbage. You're going to come in and empty the garbage every single Tuesday and Thursday when you get out of school.
Wow.
And I said, at the end of 4 weeks, one, you're going to probably know what a veterinarian does, what a vet tech does, what a vet assistant does, what an admin assistant's doing. You'll probably have met the salespeople for the pharmaceutical world. And you'll probably have a bloody job because if you've actually been there every single Tuesday and every Thursday, just volunteering, you're going to be exposed to that. And to me, that's kind of where that prototyping and thinking about, you don't have to, in that whole concept of prototyping that Burnett and Evans talk about, is you don't actually have to go do it. You got to get closer to it so you can see it. and to see what else is around. And I think that's that's a key piece to the whole. So that's one technique. Is I like to just talk about. There's lots of ways to get training, but you want to do stuff now and get out there and take that kind of action. One of
I
the
love
final
that,
things I
Jim.
want to talk about, JP, is, and I read about this adaptability quotient years ago, and it keeps coming back, and I keep thinking I'm going to see more on it, but somebody wrote about it, and it's people touch on it, but I just think this whole concept that young people and even middle-aged people think that this job is going to be the same. I'm going to get this job out of high school and I'm going to be in that job for the rest of my life. And the reality is, there's one of the key skills that people have to understand is this adaptability. And again, what I love about your challenge mindset is your challenge mindset helps me adapt, I think, my job now and my job that I have in 5 years is going to be different. 10 years is going to be even more different. Adaptability is just a huge piece to our work that we're doing, helping people understand it. I mean, what do you think about how does the challenge mindset sort of deal with this adaptability? Do you have any thoughts on that?
It's number one. The Yuval Noah Harari, which is an author who I admire, who talks about the future, says the number one skill in the 21st century will be reinvention. Um, wow, that's provocative. You got
Yeah.
to know yourself more than generative AI will know you. And then that will help you reinvent yourself. That's exciting for some people. It's scary for other people. It is irrelevant for high school students. Let me say why I say that. It's irrelevant in their day to day. They are in an anti-reinvention system, right? They're in school where things are dictated to them. They have very little ownership, very little choice, very little space for their curiosity. I know I'm being critical of the education system, but I'm comparing it to their working lives where these things will be dramatically more open. So you and I trying to convince someone in high school, to be adaptable is very hard because it doesn't feel that relevant. They don't have the space to reinvent themselves. They don't see it as necessarily relevant. They just rather copy or follow the right thing to do or follow the best path. So we've got a tough job ahead to give them opportunities to reinvent themselves, to give them opportunities to adapt, because the space to do that in their current systems is very small. That being said, it's necessary. We've got to give them a taste of doing that because that will be one of the biggest predictors of their success in the real world. The real world meaning the world of work. I read a book called The End of the Professions or The Future of the Professions from two authors, Richard Susskind and Daniel Susskind, that took the traditional occupations in medical, legal, accounting fields, and several years ago talked about how these will all be changed. They're all going to break down and be completely different. And a lot of their predictions are starting to come true. So what that meant to me was nothing is safe. None of these jobs are safe. The ones that feel the most certain and they'll be there forever, everything's going to change. So I believe in adaptability. Let me add one more, Jim, before I get your thoughts on this. Sometimes I've heard from our field is that as a reaction to technology changes and generative AI, we should help our students concentrate on the human skills. I disagree. That is pretending like the human skills are safe. People say, well, wait a minute, empathy. That's a human skill. Like generative AI won't be able to do empathy. And that is a dramatic underestimation of the capabilities of generative AI. Go to your local McDonald's, go to your local medical office, go to your local GP, report back on your experiences of empathy. How good were those folks? If you've done any training on empathy, you can systematize empathy with codes and language and steps. I think that that's coming soon. You're going to have a needless AI provide empathy to you without having to meet their own personal needs. That will compete very soon with your experience at McDonald's, your experience at the medical office, your experience with your GP. So what that means is that we need to be open-minded about what's coming next. We need to be adaptable. There will be space for us to contribute. There are going to be plenty of opportunities. I'm optimistic about that. They just might not be the same opportunities as today.
Yeah. You know, and when you look at the world of work as what problems need to be fixed, and as you said earlier, every business is open to fix a problem. And so I'm going to hire someone to help me fix some problem. That's all. That's
Yes,
the only reason I'm going to fix it. So
that's
why
it.
not jump on board that wagon early on and say, let's fix this? You know, how are we going to get, how do I run peak careers? Well, I hire a couple virtual assistants to help me manage some parts that I can't do. I want them to buy into the system. I want them to understand peak careers and what I am. So I tend to hire other career kind of people for that reason, but they're here to help solve a problem. They're not just here to go, oh, you just need me to type that up. No, I don't need you to type it up. We got to solve these problems. And I think that's what I love about the whole philosophy behind this challenge mindset is because that never goes away. If I can get hired by somebody, it's going to be to solve a problem. And I just need to remember that I'm here to solve a problem. And if I can help this company solve a problem, then, I'm always going to have a job. If I can help them, it may be a different problem next year.
That's the key. You just said it. It's because it's there's cycles. And that's what we want our clients to understand is that you're going to need to do this pattern, this process again and again,
Oh yeah.
continuously. And that's going to be your formula for success and happiness because you're going to develop skills, you're going to solve a problem, then you'll want to do something else and you'll be able to move and adjust and adapt and see new problems to solve. It's going to make you better at your job. A hiring manager wants to hire someone that solves problems and does so, with some autonomy, with some curiosity, adaptability, and ownership. Not only will it help you get a job, it'll be help you be better in the job itself.
I want to hang out with you some more, buddy. I'm taking a trip to Ottawa. I'm gonna do it. I'm coming up. You watch
Please,
out. I don't know if you're a fisherman, but I'd definitely go fishing with you. That
I'll go fishing with you.
we'd accomplish a lot. But I really do try to keep these interviews closer to 30 minutes. So I've kind of lost track of time, but I think we're pretty close. So I'm just gonna wrap it up. I'm Jim Peacock with Peak Careers Consulting. I really started my business with the facilitating career development class, which I teach a couple times a year. And then I expanded into these online discussion-based seminars for career practitioners. And those are asynchronous. They're 5 weeks long. And I run them with cohorts of people, like a mini college class in a sense. They're discussion-based. So new topics each week, new discussions. And then the next week, we sort of take on some new topics the second week. So you can check that out on my website. I love to do face-to-face workshops, and I'm also the author of a field guide for career practitioners. I do have a weekly career email that comes out, and feel free to sign up on my website and get the top 10 tips for working with undecided people. And feel free to reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn or Facebook, and you just search for Peak Careers. So I just want to give a big shout out. JP, always nice to talk with you, and thank you. And I wish you the
Same here.
best with your book and all the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Jim, for having me here. Thanks for all your help in making the book come to reality. So I appreciate you. Can't wait for our next chat.
All right.